So today we're going to do a little bit more step-by-step on how to machine your cylinder head to accept rocker studs instead of press-in studs. So you've seen some other videos already, but I figured I'd make it a little more clear of exactly what the steps are like and what you should do, what you should look out for. Step 1, obtain cylinder head. If you don't have this step done, then none of the rest of the steps really matter. So get the head you have. You're going to have a bunch of pressed in studs. You need to remove these studs. I'll put a link to the video in the description in order of each step. So click on the very first link, go watch that video, and then come back. You pulled these studs out. Good job. The next step is to figure out what studs you're going to put in. So we picked out a 7/16-14 stud. It's pretty standard for a small block Chevy stuff. What's important is you got to pick which stud you want to use, because that determines what threads you need to cut, and that determines what size hole you need to drill. So once you know the stud, look up on Google this thread pitch, this size, what size drill bit, and you'll find a chart, lots of charts telling you exactly what size drill bit to use to tap threads. So that's step 2. You got to get a drill bit. You drill these out. I showed you this in yesterday's video. Again, I'll link that, and that's link number 2, is drilling that out. It's best if you can use a drill bit that's super sharp. It's best if you can use a drill press. It's best if you can set the head up in some kind of a jig that'll hold it so that you're drilling straight down. If you can't do all of those things, then you can do it like I did it with a hand drill. It's not ideal, but it's okay. All right, the next step is you need to tap the threads. So I got myself a set of 3 taps, and I will show you the difference in all 3 of the taps. It's important that you use the right shape tap, not just the right thread pitch and size tap. So I'll show you what I mean by that. When you're starting to tap a hole, it's very easy to get crooked. And actually you'll see a lot of people on forums telling you not to tap your own threads because they'll be crooked. They're probably right, but we're going to ignore them anyway. Here is the first tap that we're going to use. It is tapered. It's a little bit hard to see, but you can see how the threads here get smaller and smaller and smaller down to the tip, down to where it's pretty much no threads at all at the very, very tip. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow the tap to self-center. So as if you go in a little bit crooked, it'll grab and it'll start pulling, and this outside edge will start removing, or trying to remove, way too much material, and it won't be able to. So it'll basically push it back in, and it'll self-center. And at that point, the threads won't be deep enough that you've then messed something up. So this is the most important tap to start with. Start with this tap. Now it's also very important not to just do this tap and ignore the rest of the steps. You need to use something called a square tap, or a bottoming tap. This does have a slight chamfer to it, but it is much, much sharper than the taper tap. And what this is going to do is this is going to actually cut the proper full thread all the way to the bottom of the hole. It's not a huge deal with my cylinder head because the holes are super, super deep. But with your cylinder head, they may not be as deep. So you want to make sure you have the threads cut all the way to the bottom of the hole, or you're going to run into issues when you actually start threading the studs in. Now my kit came with kind of an intermediate one, which is good to have. In my experience, when you're doing cast iron, you don't need to use all 3 steps. These taps are super, super sharp. They're brand new. And cast iron's really not that hard. So tapping into them, you don't really need to use 3 steps. You can if you want to. It won't hurt anything. It'll just take a little longer, but it'll be fine. Everything's good there. So once you have the taps all the way in, then you install the studs. Now I'll go to a very important tip about tapping. You need to pay very close attention to how deep you are in each hole. Sometimes on this particular cylinder head, and in other cases, the hole goes straight through, where it goes into like an empty chamber. Basically, that's fine, but the other holes are blocked off. So you need to figure out how deep the deepest, or the shallowest rather, hole really is. That way you know when to stop. The other thing I would recommend is using a wrench or some kind of hand tool to turn the tap. If you put it in like a drill, for example, you're just more likely to mess something up. What you really don't want to do is you really don't want to break the tap off in the head. So as you're threading them in, you want to pay attention to how much pressure it takes to keep it turning. If it gets way, way harder, then you've either hit the bottom or you've hit some kind of snag or something like that. It's a really good idea to back it out, maybe 2 turns, 3 turns, and then go back down and then try again and see if it's still there. If it's still there and it's your first hole, maybe go on to a different hole and see if it's just as deep. If it's abnormally high, then you can probably power through a little bit, but don't go absolutely crazy. If you can't get it through maybe 1 or 2 times, going down, backing up 3 threads, going back down, then pull the tap out, clean the tap off, clean out the hole, and then try again. You really don't want to break the tap off in there. You'll basically ruin the head. There's some specialty tools you can get to extract them. Sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. More often than not, you're probably going to either send it to a machine shop if you really care about the head, which if you care about the head, you're not watching this video. Or you're just going to throw it away and get a different head and another tap. So be careful, use hand tools, take your time, and start with a taper and end with a square. And that's pretty much it. So yeah, here's some time lapse of me tapping these. Oh, here we are. We are done. We are finished. Everything is happy. And the threads actually look really, really good. I had no fuck-ups. I had no mess making. Everything went perfectly. So this is the part where we do the next head tomorrow and then it breaks and something else horribly goes wrong. So ready for that. That'll be fun and exciting. So there you go. There's your update for the day, and we'll see you tomorrow.